Well, good morning, afternoon, evening, good night, wherever you may be. We have a panel from all across the world, so we're all in different time zones here as well. But welcome to a discussion of Stone of Farewell by Tad Williams. This, of course, is the second book in the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. And we've been doing a read along on the Fireside Discord. That's me and Matt and Joanna are the owners of that Discord. And Kathy is very active there. Nico's been active, and here we are. We're going to talk about the book a little bit. So just a quick background about the series, if you're not familiar with it. We are not going to be spoiler-free very long because it is a book too. We will give our overviews of kind of what we feel about this second installment. But for the most part, this will be a spoiler-filled discussion. So I'll put up the banner whenever we start that. But this is the second book of the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn trilogy, which is a trilogy kind of 4 books, depending on how it is published. I have the Broken Binding edition, which they split the last 2 books into 2, and a lot of the early editions as well, because the third book is like the definition of a chunker. So we will be talking about that book in 2 months, because we're spreading that one out over 2 months. Yeah, look at that thing. That's just Stone of Farewell is not
obscene,
not a joke. So it's definitely a very big commitment, this series. It's kind of a 4-book trilogy. But Stone of Farewell is the second book of this trilogy. Some things changed from the first book, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. So we will start here just very quickly our spoiler-free thoughts on the book, and then we're just going to dive in and start talking about the characters, the story, etc., etc. So let's start with our friend from Down Under. Kathy, tell us your just kind of spoiler-free thoughts of Stone of Farewell.
Hi, everyone. Well, Stone of Farewell, obviously being a second book, means we're already familiar with all the characters. And I personally love that. It's not a discovery. It's more continuing with old friends. And I found the book started really fast-paced. It seemed to just fly. There was so much going on. And I really liked the different perspectives that we got to see. So overall, it had a banger beginning, but I found as it headed towards the end of the book, it started getting bogged down a little for me. And I didn't enjoy the second half as much as I enjoyed the first. But I'm still keen to read the next. Yeah. So that's just my preliminary thoughts on it.
Great. Thanks, Kathy. Matt, how about you?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. If you know me, I usually don't wear glasses, but I just got brand new glasses today, which I only ever wear for like watching movies and stuff. And I thought they make me look intelligent so then I can keep up with the other 3 people in the stream. And also I don't feel left out because I would be otherwise the only one without glasses. I read it a while ago. I got excited about the read along, and I got excited enough, mostly from watching Jimmy Nuts' videos about Tad, that I said, screw the read along, I'm starting now. And I started in November last year. So I think sometime in December I read Stone of Farewell. I was saying just before we went live, Tad is a master of many things. He does some really interesting stuff with characters. He does lots of really interesting in-depth world building. He's not a master of pacing. There are, like Kathy said, there are bits of it where you think, oh, wow, this is really fast-paced. And then you're like, whoa, all of a sudden it got really boring and slow for a really long time. And then, boom, something happens again. And then it's boring for a really long time again. And that was kind of my impression. I quite liked the book. Overall impression was definitely positive. I also like getting deeper into characters we already know and seeing plots that have been seeded in a previous book come to fruition or at least develop further. I wasn't crazy about where some of these plots went, to be honest. And I'd kind of hoped maybe for a little more character development, specifically with the dumbest character in the series. But overall, I was left with a positive impression. I then went on to Green Angel Tower, which I've heard from everybody is the banger in the sort of trilogy, but it also starts so slow that I put it down and waited for the read along to catch up. So I'll be continuing with that soon. Nico.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. So Nico is our newest member of the panel here. He's read the series, and we were actually, Nico, we were on Andy's stream together when he released his book.
Oh, that's right, we were.
I remember you mentioned to me that the first 2 books are pretty slow, and then the third book's a banger. So you're here to talk me off the ledge, because when I talk about my spoiler-free thoughts, I wasn't real positive on this book. So first of all, welcome to the channel, Nico. This is the first time you've been on the channel. I'm glad to be able to chat with you here. But what are your kind of just spoiler-free thoughts of Stone of Farewell?
I actually read the follow-up series right at the end of last year. I will say, though, because I have to point out, this is one of my favorite covers of all time. I just absolutely love the original cover art so much. So I'll point that out. But
we can discuss this in a bit more detail in a minute, because I'm a huge fan of Michael Whelan, and I think this is one of the dumbest covers he ever did.
Oh no! Oh,
it's one of the absolute worst. It's unbelievably
so you're choosing violence.
bad.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I love this one.
I
so
always
much.
choose violence, mate.
But yeah. So, and I will say, so I originally read the series. It's been a few years when I first read it. I am, and I will admit, the person that when people are complaining a book is too slow, I'm immediately like, I should check that out, because that's probably going to be up my alley. I do really, really enjoy my kind of slow burn books.
Nico, your mic is dropping out completely sometimes and getting quiet sometimes, and then it's normal, and it keeps.
Let me make sure. Okay, sorry. I probably shouldn't actually turn my head when I'm talking, because I'm using like a real mic at the moment.
Directional mic, yeah. Okay.
Sorry. Okay, so
much better.
But yeah, so it's been a few years since I read it, but this is a series that I really did love. It is slower, and I will say the pacing thing. I remember mentioning that in my original reviews as well, because you have like this book starts with the falling action from book 1. And then kind of goes in, and then there's other things happening. Although there's a lot of stuff that's being set up here, and I think a lot of it is this was barring he wrote Tail Chaser's Song, which is a standalone book about cats. This was otherwise the first thing he ever published and really wrote, and so you can see some of those kind of new author things where he's figuring out with pacing. But yeah, to Green Angel Tower, despite being a behemoth, once that gets going, there was just so much. And when I read it, I planned on taking a break halfway through, and I just kept going because I couldn't put it down. So I will say that it does pull a lot of things together and really just kind of run with it, because there's a lot being set up, and a lot of those kind of like new authorisms get better for sure.
Well, that's good to know. And Heidi put a comment here how the second series is better than the first series, because for me, this book was a total slog. If I weren't leading a read along, I think I would have DNF'd it, because I was just frankly bored in the middle of this. It started with, like Kathy said, it started with so much promise. We got a kind of multi-POV storytelling technique, which kind of started a little bit at the end of the first book. And I was liking that, because it seemed like, oh, this is going to be a lot more fast paced, but somehow it was slower paced. And I realized for me, the biggest thing, my biggest concern with this series right now is that I don't feel any connection with the story or frankly any of the characters. I feel I like some of the characters, and we'll talk about them in the spoiler section. But I felt that I just don't feel connected to the text pretty much at all. And I pushed through, and there were a couple good chapters at the end that I thought elevated it. Like Matt said, he was positive on it. I'm barely positive on the book. I think I gave it a 3 out of 5, which is a favorable rating. But for me, this was a total slog. And if I weren't reading a read along, I don't know if I'd be picking up to Green Angel Tower right away. It may have been one where I kind of kick it down the road. But kind of that's where I am. I might elaborate on that a little bit more as we go along. I'm not sure.
Keep in mind, Josh, that you almost DNF'd Malazan.
True. That's
Mm,
true.
good point.
That's a very good point. So I'm hopeful, and I have heard from Nico and others about how good the finale is to Green Angel Tower. So I hope that that's the case, because this felt like a chore at times, and in many ways kind of broke me a little bit. So yeah. So Andrew has read it twice, he says, and definitely loves it. But the rogue here,
Go on, Rogue.
yeah, this is
That's-
good. Williams is so slow, makes Hobb read like John Gwynn in comparison.
That's
I read
quite
the first
description.
2 books around 30 years ago, and I never finished the series. And having just reread the last book, the second book, I think it's because I found it too slow as well. Because I couldn't remember why I didn't just go on and finish it. I usually do finish series.
Yeah.
So it is slow. There's no doubt about it. And also, let's be honest, the second book doesn't have a real climax as such, like other books do. And perhaps that also contributed to many people I know on the Discord regarding the read along found it disappointing, not as good as the first one anyway.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that stereotypical middle book syndrome for sure, because it's just a lot of staging. But even along the way, I don't know. I counted when I get to the end, I went through the character list and I realized that the story was in 10 different places. And then I said, okay, how many of these do I find interesting? And it was 1 out of the 10. The other 9, every time we got to that, I was just like, can we just get through this quickly? So that was definitely another detractor for me.
Well,
So,
that's
yeah, Andrew, I'm hoping this is true.
Yeah, that's encouraging. I'm looking forward to actually reading the next one, despite the fact that I didn't love the second one as much as the first. I actually do want to see where the story is going to go. I'm invested. So
I can say when you get to Green Angel Tower, give yourself about 5 chapters, because when I started the book, I won't say anything about it other than this, but like when I started to Green Angel Tower, I was like, oh, really? Tad can make the story slower and have less happening?
Malazan can be a bit slow sometimes to begin with. When you're getting, when you have all these different points of view, it can feel like, okay, yes, this is all the build up to the story. I don't have any problems with that. I just found with Stone of Farewell, it started off so high and then it just kind of petered out. That's what I felt. Yeah.
As an aside, you guys should never read Shadow March. I'm just going to tell you that now. This is the one that I thought the beginning was too slow on. So
I don't mind slow books, but at some point I feel you have to feel that there is some movement in the plot, some development in the characters, or something to make it interesting.
Yeah, and that's one of those I put in my Goodreads review that I felt that I always thought I was a slow burn type of reader until I read this book. So either I'm not a slow burn type of reader, or this is like my tipping point. Like this is just too slow. Because I would agree that Erickson can be slow, but people don't talk about it because of his finales of his books are just so brilliant and so incredible. You know, like I think of like Memories of Ice. The second book of that was kind of slow. It's just a lot of things were bouncing around and all of this, but then it got really, really good at the end. So you kind of not necessarily forget that, but maybe forgive that a little bit more. And then Kathy, like you said, this book doesn't have a big climax. So maybe that paid into it at, you know, went into it
I'm
as
so
well.
much more focused on characters. And like you said, Josh, like Robin Hobb gave me 250 pages of 2 characters talking. and I ate it up with a spoon. Like, slow is not the problem. But if what is happening is slow and it involves characters I haven't really learned to care about very much, then it really feels like a slog.
So what I'm hearing is you guys are all Simon haters.
Well, I think we're not Simon lovers.
So,
Put it that way.
that's a diplomatic way to put it. Simon's challenging to me.
I liked him in Dragonbone Chair more than Stone of Farewell. I think I wanted to see a little bit more growth and a little bit more maturity after having gone through all these things. And it almost feels like he regressed. Like, I was more forgiving in Dragonbone Chair because he was just a stupid kid in a castle that didn't know anything. Well, now he's been through so much, you figure that there would have been somewhat of, some sort of growth along there. So I don't know who this is towards, but
me, I think.
I think it's to all of us. Well, I'm taking it personally too, but
I think Nico's definitely of an age where calling him old is purely an insult and not true.
It's Andrew said that I was born 50 before, so it still fits.
I love Binnabic. I don't think he's meant to be an old character either. So
I have no problem with Binnabic. Binnabic is awesome.
You adore Binnabic.
Yeah,
Binnabic is a top tier character.
It's not that Tad can't write characters I love. It's just Simon's not one of them.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree with that. I think he's that kind of everyday kid who has fallen into extraordinary situation, doesn't always deal with it well, and he can be so irritating at times. Yeah, and I think that's why he's hard to really take to. But the other characters, you can love them, you can hate them. There are some I really love in this book, and Binnabic, he's a favorite, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. He's my favorite in the series. When he's on screen, those are the scenes I like the best.
Yeah.
The trilogy should be called Memory, Sorrow, and Binnabic.
No, he is a really great character. And but he is, and I mean, it shows that Tad is a good character writer because I see a lot of complexity with that character. There is a lot of kind of diametrically opposed things with him, with his age and his experience, but he's also very competent, and I really enjoy the character. You also see him kind of his insecurities come out at times, and he's a fantastic character. So
well developed.
Yes.
Very well developed. Yeah. And he feels real, like a real person. He doesn't feel like just somebody on a page. Oh, you made it interesting, Andrew. Thank you. Yeah, I think there are some good characters, some great characters in this book. I liked Dionoth, Joshua's second. I like Joshua's. It's hard to say that. I keep wanting to say Joshua. Yeah, I like his development throughout this book in particular. I liked also Dinivan a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now
I would say Mac here put it what I said. Isgrimner is definitely a favorite of mine.
Isgrimner is awesome.
Yeah, I really like that question. And Rachel the Dragon, it seems like there's probably more in store for her because we got to see her more in this book. And I did love because you only saw Simon's perspective. Sorry, I was
close enough.
I saw this.
Yeah.
You only saw Rachel through Simon's eyes, and then when we finally get to see some Rachel POV chapters, you see it's so different. And Simon is just typical idiot kid. Oh, she hates me. Everybody hates me. Like, no, that's not the case here.
I do find this to be a series like Farseer. If you don't like Fitz and you don't connect to Fitz, you're not going to enjoy Farseer. And this is kind of similar, although there are a ton of POVs. If you don't like Simon, you're going to have a bit of a rough time because his POVs are going to be painful if you don't care about him. And that's where when we did Andrew and I did a buddy read. It was my first time, and it was a reread for him years ago. We had some people drop off kind of, in similar ways. They're just like didn't like the first book even, and it just wasn't for them. And it's one of those things, if you don't like Simon, and he is kind of just a dumb kid, and he has in some ways a little bit less growth because he's just still kind of himself. And I think even in the as you get along, like there are some changes, but it's also like he's a mooncalf, and he gets on my nerves sometimes too. But it's like, oh, you kind of thing versus a like, "God, shut up, you dumb kid." Like I didn't get to that there. I was more like the, oh, you.
I didn't hate him either. I just found him irritating at times.
I don't hate
wanted
him.
him to grow up a little.
I think the Fitz and Simon comparison, like for anyone who's read Robin Hobb, the Fitz and Simon comparison is apt, but the difference between Fitz and Simon is Fitz is mentally and emotionally an idiot, but he's physically competent. Like he can do things. And Simon is incompetent and stupid in every realm of life.
I mean, you're not wrong.
He's emotionally and intellectually, like he has no idea what's going on, and he's physically incompetent. And every time he does something that's successful, like the dragon, it's kind of an accident. You can't say, oh, well done, Simon. Like that was tricky and you managed. It's like, no, that just sort of happened and you happen to be there, And I find him really tiring because of that.
So Ava, yeah, I agree with this, and I agreed with this in Dragonbone Chair, but like I'd mentioned before, I feel like there's been zero character growth from him, and he's gone through
He's been through a lot,
and
he hasn't changed. Yeah,
that's something I really don't like in fiction, when like huge things with big emotional stakes happen to people and they're exactly the same. Like to give a crime fiction example, like I love, that's why I love Lehane, because the characters, there's a toll of what happens to them. You read a Jack Reacher book and like he goes through hell and the next day it's like no big deal. So it's just one of those that, for me at least personally, if there's no growth, that's why I don't like the character quite as much.
This is also coming back to the cover. This is one of the reasons I hate the cover. Like, just artistically, I think this is a really badly done cover because it's two-dimensional. He's standing in front of a flat wall. It's a flat wall of butterflies, but it's still a flat wall. It's a straight-on perspective. Nothing is happening, and it looks like, and this is also representative of the book, it looks like someone just threw a pile of things at Simon, and he's just barely managed to catch them. He's got like a mirror strangely tucked under his arm and an arrow sticking out from his armpit, and he's holding a sword by its blade. It's just what happens to Simon in this book is he walks around with a collection of items and is never smart enough to get a fucking backpack to put them in. And he gets a white stripe in his hair. I mean, he got the white stripe in the previous book, but he's now walking around with a white stripe in his hair. He changes externally, and that's it.
The picture actually makes him look a lot more competent than he really
is.
Is.
Looking at this cover, I would have thought, oh, okay, he's become a little more mature, a little more thoughtful. No, he's the same idiot. He's just holding a bunch of stuff.
However, when we started Stone of Farewell and we were up in, what's the mountains called? Quinac? I can never remember the names of.
The names are tough.
Yeah, Binabak's home.
Yeah.
I thought, we're actually going to see that this character has matured. That's how we started off. And then it just seemed to go downhill after that. And I must admit, at the beginning, the first few chapters in particular, whilst they were on the mountain and coming down, I absolutely loved certain scenes that he was in as well, even though I just want to slap him over the back of the head most of the time. There were certain scenes where he showed some emotion towards other characters, like towards Haston or towards Binabik, which was, I found myself more attached than I realized. But as the book progressed, oh my God, he got so silly again, and that's when I got frustrated with him.
Yeah.
Matt, that description of the cover brought me so much joy. I just want you to know that.
I studied painting, and I'm a designer by trade, so I look at things like this in a very critical, like visual analytic kind of way. And as soon as I saw this, I was like, could you possibly come up with a more static composition and a clumsier way for a character? It's like someone gave Michael Whelan a list of the things that Simon carries around with him in the book and said, paint him holding those, and that's it. You know, and he hadn't read the book, but I know book.
I'm never going to look at it the same, though. I'm always going to remember
this. I'm like, what are you doing? What's he doing with the mirror stuck under his arm like that? And actually, if you even look at it closely, that mirror cannot be there because his arm is actually in front of it. He's not holding that mirror at all. It's like it's pinned to his chest or something. It's a bad cover. I hate it. I love Michael Whelan covers. Like, I have Michael Whelan covers framed in my flat. You know, like I love his work, and this is the worst cover he's ever done. But that's just me.
It's worse, but I don't love it either.
Yeah,
it certainly doesn't reflect the character itself.
His Hob covers are also pretty bad. So, but they're more interesting than this one. But they're also pretty weak. But anyway.
All right, are we ready to do some spoiler talk here?
Of course.
All right, I'm going to put the banner up just to, in case anybody hops on, they know that we're talking spoilers.
Jerome is right. I mean, that's the only thing this cover has going for it, is it completely expresses how awkward and kind of boring Simon is. That's what that cover does effectively. This is much cooler.
Ron makes a very good point.
This is much cooler.
Yeah, that one's gorgeous.
That's pretty.
Yeah, that's a pretty epic cover. Yeah, this is a good point from Ron.
Yeah, sure.
I know you have to keep in mind he is still so young, and I am keeping it in mind. That's why I was like surprised how attached I was at the beginning. And then just started getting more and more irritated by the end. I thought I wanted to see a little bit more growth by the end of the book, and I didn't see it.
Yeah,
even a 15-year-old should have the sense to find a backpack, though. Like, find a damn backpack, Simon.
Yeah, no, I mean, Kathy, that was my exact issue. Is not that because I thought he was realistic. I mean, I teach teenagers, so I know the walking contradictions that they often are. Yeah. And I thought that was very, very depicted really well, especially at the beginning of Dragonbone Chair. But he's kind of still the same exact person, having gone through a lot of extremely traumatic things that would, even if it is a few weeks, would change you. So I guess that was my frustration. But let's talk about some of the characters we might like. I call him Joshua just because like my name is never in a book. So, but I guess it's Joshua. I don't know how.
Joshua.
Is that how the audiobook does it?
Joshua. Yeah.
But yeah, I did see. I thought he was a character that we did see some meaningful growth, and I think some good self-reflection as he started to recognize that kind of his whole attitude and approach towards Vorsheva and just everything in general was not necessarily the best kind of approach to go. As who was his was it Diarnoth?
I really like Diarnoth.
Like he's his man, but he just kept trying to point out to him like, you know, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing this, and
over here.
Yeah, and it's almost like he's the reluctant hero who's finally starting to realize he has to take a more active role in everything.
He also went through something quite traumatic in that so many people under his care were killed. So I gave him a bit of grace for that it wasn't going to be that easy for him to overcome that he could have very easily fallen into a depression and decided not to do anything. So, yeah, I thought he was very well developed in this book in particular. And I really did like his growth as a character. Don't like his choice in women, but I definitely like his growth
Speaking
as a
of characters we hate,
Wow, I can rant about Vorsiva for
my God.
ages, but I'm going to, yeah, I'll leave it up to you guys to talk first about her because honestly, I can't stand her. Yeah. No?
No.
No?
Well, you know,
Okay.
we can kind of wrap her in because I had asked a question when we were talking on the Discord about specifically the female characters, and I just asked the question. You know, I don't want to take the author as his whole works, but at least in these two books, how well does he draw these female characters in these two books?
Terrible.
Yeah, I think our consensus is that it's not good.
He's not great with female characters.
He started well with Muriel in particular, even Maegwyn in Dragonbone Chair. I liked both of these characters. I did not like where he took them in Stone of Farewell.
No.
I didn't like many of the females. Well, how many more were there? Really just Rachel.
Galoe.
Duke Isgrimna's wife, we didn't really get to see all that much. But Vorsiva and
Maegwyn.
And Maegwyn, oh my God, I didn't like any of them in this book, I have to admit.
I
The
really
only,
like
the only
Maegwyn.
competent, powerful woman in the whole thing so far is Galoe.
Yeah, she was great. I liked her.
She's kind of cool.
Yeah.
She's
She was
like
good.
a female Gandalf or something.
Mm.
But otherwise, they're all kind of either extremely annoying, like Vorsiva, or make the dumbest decisions.
Oh my God, all of them.
Muriel.
Yeah. Like Muriel and Maegwyn in this book.
Yeah. Yeah, Maegwyn as well. Pushing away Eloa, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Eloa, the ambassador.
Yeah.
I thought that just never made sense to me. What, because she had feelings for him, she was going to be rude to him? That didn't make sense. So, yeah, I really didn't like the behavior.
Eolair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Eolair.
I really like the Eolair. I'm not a Maegwyn fan. I didn't like Maegwyn throughout the whole series, I will say. So I was going to comment though, because it was actually in your guys' Discord. Igor made a comment about Vorsiva kind of in defense of, which made me think about it too, because I was very much, when I read this, in the camp of just kind of like not liking her and hating the character. But she is basically like on the verge of being cast out or just like outright killed because she's seen as the like a dishonor from her people. And then like, you know, when she goes with I just found the spot here finally. So like when Jarnoga comes and he's like telling them all the stuff, like Joshua believes him, but Vorsiva, when she says things, he doesn't really believe her. So like even with, you know, Joshua, there's some like not necessarily believing her and that kind of thing too. So she's still an annoying and dramatic character in my opinion, who does a lot of things, but also like she's not given a lot of benefit of the doubt either. So
I also kept sympathizing with her a little bit in the first book, especially more because Joshua was annoying me so much. It's like there's this dude who is clearly in a position where if he doesn't step up and become essentially something like a king, his people are going to die. Like everyone's going to suffer because he's being a weak-ass nobody. And if he doesn't find the balls to do something, there's going to be huge problems. And she's stuck with this guy. And I think, and I always had the feeling with her that like she can see what he could be. And it's got to be amazingly frustrating being with a man who acts weak, who could be strong and refuses to just be strong, you know? So I had a little sympathy for her in that respect, but she still ended up on my, oh my God, this is the most annoying character in the entire book kind of.
I did. Once we saw kind of where she was from and we kind of saw all these tribes and everything, I thought that did inform a lot more background into this character so that at least, I mean, I think she does have a flair for the over dramatic, but you could at least see where she's coming from because she turned her back entirely on her people and kind of betrayed their traditions. And so all she has is kind of Joshua. So she's just frustrated by him. You know, they're not married, at least until, we're spoilers now, until later in the book. You know, they're not married. So she's kind of trying to cling on to the only thing that she has, which is him at this point. So I did understand her a lot more by the end.
Once we meet her people, I was like, oh, she's not horrible. They're all horrible. Like, it's not just her. Like, her dad is even worse. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you come from that, then yeah, it
Still
explains a
think
lot.
she's a drama queen. And
Oh
I
yeah,
think
no, I mean, it doesn't make me like her.
that is the reason why Joshua will dismiss her in the first book. I don't think it was because Joshua was being sexist. I think it was more that, you know, he's used to her dramatics, so he just doesn't take her seriously. Though, yes, I don't deny she had some reasons for her behavior, but I will insist that her helping Miriam to escape was the most ridiculous thing still, and it does not, or her background does not excuse that. She did that, and it was a very silly move. And honestly, I don't think she has good reason for doing it. But regardless, yeah, she is definitely not my favorite. And it was funny how her attitude completely changed once she was married to Joshua. And I thought, okay, yeah, I don't know if I even like that part of it. I'd like to know
All
that
a bit
there's
too
more
bit
to the
too easy.
character. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, you don't go from being
psycho.
the most annoying person in the entire series to
Yeah.
being a relatively normal, reasonable person
Yeah,
like that just because one
Yeah.
thing happened. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
Yeah.
still there beneath the surface. Don't worry.
Yeah, you know, I expect her to annoy the crap out of me again soon, no
Yeah.
question. But yeah, I just kept thinking, Joshua, what are you doing? Like, why are you with this woman?
Yeah.
She was
Like,
beautiful. That's why.
Yeah.
she's pretty, and
But
like,
no, she's beautiful. That is
There-
how she's
there
described.
are lots of
As
beautiful women in the
beautiful.
world.
But she's exotic.
Yes.
Yeah,
Really what it is, though.
Yeah.
yeah. It just really doesn't seem worth it. It really doesn't seem worth it. I just keep thinking, like, Joshua,
She's hot.
like, go find
Well,
another
Meg-
hot woman. Like, there've got to be more out there, you know?
Maitland,
That is the thing.
I do
Oh, go
hope
ahead,
that
sir.
they did do that. I did like that character. In fact, when I mentioned that we had like 10 different storylines going on at once, the one that I did like was I don't remember the name because the names are like crazy hard to remember, but the Elfin City where Simon was kind of trapped. You know, I did like that because one thing that I really like about Williams' writing is I think his world building is really great. It's really vivid. And I think it's I don't know, I guess it's unique enough that I just really love reading those passages. So I enjoyed, even though it was Simon, I enjoyed the times in kind of this Sitha city. And I did like Aditu. So I don't know. I'm guessing by this, she's probably going to be back in the last book, but that was the storyline. And I did think, especially the scene with Amaterasu, you know, and then we get the revelation that the Storm King is her son. Like that chapter, that was probably my favorite chapter in the last 2/3 of the book, because we finally got some answers. It was well written, it was suspenseful, and I definitely enjoyed that part of it. But yeah, so hopefully we get, you know, some more of her, and maybe we'll see some character growth. I mean, really, we're 2/3 of the way through the trilogy, but we're really only halfway. Because the last book's so big. So there's still a lot of time for maybe some of the things that we're frustrated with to hopefully get better. I mean, Nico, can you confirm some of that without spoiling the last book for us? Because again, you need to talk me off the ledge here.
Yeah, and I will say with Williams, you know, and as a lot of the conversation's been here, he does write flawed characters, and even like the good characters can be flawed and kind of frustrating. And so I think as part of it, you know, you do expect this is a little bit more classic fantasy, style, and so you expect the very like the noble, the good, the black and white, and his stuff is a little different, so it can take a bit, but you will see a lot more. There's a ton of action in the last book. The characters actually do grow. You know, some of them they're still going to be frustrating. Like, I'm not going to promise that you're not going to be annoyed by like Simon or Rosheva or anything, but you do get a lot more and see a lot more. And there's a lot more reveals and big things. I will say too, with like all the different names and plots going on, Tad Williams is very aware, because there's I think in each one of his books somewhere, or at least in each series, there's a couple of comments where a character in world will say, "Oh my gosh, I just can't keep all these names, keep track of them. There's so many things going on." And so like, I love the little fourth wall break that like, yeah, I know I'm a little, you know, he runs a little long sometimes, it does it, but it really does come together really well, and there's so much going on, and I think the climax you were looking for at the end of this book, you are still going to get that. There's more than one big climax in the second book, or in the third book.
There were a lot of things like it's one of the things I really like about Tad's writing is he doesn't just do the stereotype. You know, there are a lot of stereotypes in I won't call them tropes, because I'm more talking about characters than story beats, but there are a lot of stereotypes in fantasy, and a lot of the characters he gives us, the places he gives us, the world building, it's fantasy, it's recognizable fantasy, but it's avoiding or kind of subverting a little bit some of the stereotypes. Like, I was super into the world building when I'm not going to try and remember the name of the place, but the elf place where they, you know, or the Scythy place where they take Simon and they're not going to let him leave. And it was a mix of, wow, this is really cool world building, and I'm totally into it, and I want to know everything about these people. Mm-hmm. And oh my God, this is horrible. This is like being bored to death. Like Simon has been, and I, the reader, have been condemned to be bored to death. Like, we watch Simon sit around and do nothing for weeks, and he's not allowed to leave, you know? And I was like, wow, this is a really interesting story choice, to like take the main character, put him in a place, and say, you can't go anywhere and you can't do anything. And reader, you have to watch this.
Actually, it was unexpected.
Yeah. No, I mean, so in that sense, I liked it, even though it was boring. I was enjoying it just because it was like, who does that when they're writing a fantasy novel? Mm-hmm. It's like, let's take the absolute most important person in the entire story, our star, and lock him in a room.
Well, he had to kind of introduce the Sith in more detail, and I have to admit, it was one of my favorite parts of the story, because it just illustrated for me how alien they are to the others who live in Austin Art. They are very different in many ways, not only the way they live, but also the way they think and the way they look as well. And I think that was necessary. I still don't know what role they're going to play, but they're obviously being dragged into this conflict, whether they like it or not, because it involves family as such. So I haven't even tried to guess where it's going to go after this, but I really did like that. And I like that Simon was trapped there. In a way, I thought, yeah, that's fine. Let's deal with the other characters and see them, because Simon can be boring sometimes, especially on his own, because we got that in the first book. And when he was split from Binabik and, is that Sludig? I never remember his name.
Yeah.
I thought, who wants to deal with Simon now on his own yet again? Because he's just going to wallow in self-pity, which he did again. So regardless, I really did like the Scythy city, I should say.
Yeah, I agree. The world building aspect is what I still like most about the books. I think there's a lot of just a lot of detail, a lot of richness in there. And I did like that, because he described it well enough that I could picture it as kind of a variation of a theme of a elfin city. There was just enough difference in there. And I love the part where Simon tries to just go off and leave, and he ends up right where he started.
And he walks in a circle, basically. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and for me, I'm such a world building focused reader, and I do just his writing style and his prose. I also really enjoy, and so
Beautiful.
that's where his
Beautiful.
writing just sucks me in. I love the world. I love the world building, and those are big reasons that I love the series so much for sure. And yeah, I will say with finding out more about the Scythe and you know, and them, the Norns and all that kind of stuff, I find it really fascinating. And obviously I can't give any sort of details, but gosh, just wait. Assuming you guys read the follow-up series, oh man, there's so much more to depth of the world building that you get in it.
There's hints of that in this book, especially with those, somebody called it the Jim Henson-esque Darrows people.
The Darrows,
the Darrows.
Yeah. I mean, they
yeah.
obviously came over with the Scythe to Austin Art. But I'd like to know so much more about their culture.
The Niskies as well. Like we meet one of the Niskies and on the ship.
Yes,
with,
on the
with
boat.
Miriamel.
Yeah, on the ship. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, Nico, I don't spoil anything, but the foreshadowing with the Niskies was not exactly light. Like I was like, okay, these people are really, really significant. Big shit is going to go down with these Niskies.
Yeah.
It was hammering on that quite a bit, and I'm here for it. I loved the I forget her name, the Niski on the ship.
Yeah, she was great.
She was super cool, and just the idea of the Niskis and that they're singing down the Kilpas and
Gan something.
Yeah,
like two names, Gan something. Yeah,
she was really good.
But then Miriamel's frustrating in that scene.
Miriamel on the ship. Oh my god.
Oh, I'm gonna fall in love with the captain now. Like,
typical teenage girl, or so we are told.
Yeah.
But her behavior, even before that, I actually got really annoyed with her when they were at, what is it, the place with the Lecter and Dinavan.
Yeah.
I got really annoyed at her behavior there. Let alone when we got to the ship, it was like just the icing on the cake. I thought, if I don't like this character, now I can't stand her. So, yeah, Gan Itai, that must be the Niski.
Yeah.
That was a very interesting aspect, though. That made her bearable.
It's funny that was, like, to me, the most tragic moment in the entire book was when Dinavan and the Lecter.
Yeah.
When Parates comes in and barbecues them.
So cool.
I was just like, these are the two coolest people in the entire world.
Yeah.
Can you not burn them to death, please?
Yeah.
Well, it's such a surprising thing to happen, though. Like, I mean, you don't see that coming.
No, I didn't see that one coming
at all. No. Yeah.
Especially from the lens, the one thing I keep trying to do is try to think about when it was written. Because it is the Bridge series, you know, this is before George R.R. Martin and the shocking plot turns and character deaths and things like that.
Yeah.
But when you get a scene like that, it is shocking because that wasn't done back then. Like you talk about, like, I don't know if you guys have read the Belgariad, David Eddings, like, you know that everybody's going to be okay. It's just that's kind of how fantasy was back then, you know, like, there's the stakes are a lot different in modern fantasy. So when you look at it at the lens of this was still what was kind of the norm, a scene like that does have a lot more impact. Just because
I thought it was cool. Like he managed a lot with very little because we don't really know the Lictor very well. We don't know Dinavan very well, but I really cared. Like I was pissed off when they got burned to death. Like not just because Parates is such a puppy killing bad guy, but just because I liked Dinavan and the Lictor and I wanted them to be able to do good things in the world, you know.
They were good guys in a world that isn't so black and white. We have a lot of characters who you don't even know on which side they are on, but regardless, it was a big shock and it was really well done. And something else I really loved in this book was, and I know I'm going to get his name wrong, Guthwolf, Elias's favorite henchman, general, whatever he is. Do you remember him? Is it, or is it Grunt Wolf or
Vaguely.
something
Yeah.
like that? He actually was the one who, when we got into Hayholt and we saw the effect on all the people in the city, knowing that he has, well, Elias, I mean, the king has called in these creatures from the north, the Norns. Even Guthwolf was really disgusted and wondering whether he could actually leave the king. And I actually thought that was really well done, because it illustrated for me how much the king was out of touch with his subjects, and how much the subjects were not blind to what the king was doing was actually really horrible and scary, and they don't know where it's going. They have lost faith in their king, as well as his own soldiers, his own generals. So I really liked that part of it. That's when
Yeah.
Rachel was there as well and was looking to kill the king, which
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
I
Was
getting carried away in the
anybody?
comments.
What did everybody think with the Bright Nail reveal?
We all knew
We
that.
knew it.
Okay, I was going to say, like,
Yeah.
that was dropped as if it was some sort of like exciting reveal, and I was like, we're looking for 3 magic swords, and we only know about one anywhere in the world. It's got to
Yeah.
be one of those 3, doesn't it? Yeah.
Mm.
So, what about Kadrak? That
I
character.
liked him.
I love Kadrak. I'm totally here for like, who the hell is he?
Yeah, I find him very intriguing and frustrating. You know, he just seems to, he'll do the right thing, like knocking Miriamel on the head and getting her out of danger, and then he'll just go and get drunk and put her in danger again. And it's like, I don't know what to think about him, but he is a character that I find intriguing.
I think he's a very flawed character who's obviously tormented by something, but his knowledge is much wider than we know, because he seems to know something about the Norns, or I can't remember what her name is. Is she a queen, or what is she? The one who sits in the middle of nowhere. And I'd like
Cuckoo?
to know more about his background and just who he is, why he lost faith, obviously. Yeah, I actually really like this character because he is flawed. He seems real to me. He's not perfect. He's made mistakes, obviously, continues to make mistakes. He's not someone you trust, but he did his best to try to protect Miriamel. And so I give him credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely got. We don't really understand what it is or why it is, but he's definitely got some good motivation. Because, like, how and why would you put up with Miriamel for that long if it wasn't important for you?
You
to
really
do
don't like Miriamel.
I just.
She was annoying. I don't deny.
She's really annoying, and I mean, it frustrated me on maybe a little bit of a meta level in this book. Like, not just the character in the story is frustrating and is meant to be, but why did you write the character in such a way that she would put herself into a rape scenario? You know, I had moments where I was like, dude, okay. And I know she's a 15-year-old girl, and it's easy to forget because not many fantasy heroes actually act like teenagers, even if they are.
Yeah.
So she is a stupid girl, just like Simon is a stupid boy. But man, I just, like, every time she made any decision, I was just immediately like, what are you doing? Why? Yeah. Stop it. Go that way. Like, actually, you know the drunk monk you're hanging around with? He's not the loser he looks like. Just do what he says. Like, stop trying to make decisions on your own and just do what this guy says. Yeah, super frustrating. But yeah, like I said, you know, what 15-year-old girl isn't super frustrating? Not many, I think.
I do want to bring up one scene that I thought was really well written. The scene with it was Scody, I think was her name, and the children. And I
Yeah.
thought Williams was, you know, as a fan of Stephen King, I thought the horror elements of that whole sequence was incredibly done, incredibly well done, and creepy as you can get.
He gets dark like that sometimes too, and just those kinds of moments, which are other things that I feel like you just aren't expecting in this kind of story, especially when it was published as well. And it's just, yeah, it's that whole scene is just, it's so messed up, but it's very compelling.
That's a good parallel, at least so far. Miriam L and Malta. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, although
they're both kind of insufferable at this point.
Personality-wise, I find them very different. Like Malta is just the typical spoiled rich kid, you know, and I don't have that feeling from Miriam L. Like she's much more like, I'm going to go out and do things. She goes undercover and, you know, all that sort of stuff. It's just she makes a lot of stupid decisions. I'm hoping that she has a like eventually a Malta-like character development, like, and actually becomes a less than annoying human.
She's an entitled princess, let's not forget, who's used to having anything she wanted. So I think you're giving her a little bit too much credit.
Maybe, but Malta to me is like,
I don't know Malta.
Okay, yeah, Malta. Maybe you would agree that Malta is much worse because Malta is so horrible,
especially in Ship of Destiny. Yeah.
At the beginning, anyway. Like,
I say Malta. I'm still shocked grew on me, but I hated that character so much in those early books. So much.
It's one of the things to me that makes Hobb like one of the top writers for me. Is she could introduce someone like Malta, and the only thing I wanted to do with her for 2.5 books is shake her until her teeth rattle and slap her unconscious. Like, she's just horrible. And then by the end, you're like, okay. I don't like saying it, but I actually kind of like you now. Yeah. Whereas I definitely haven't gotten there with Miriam L.
Yeah,
she's still in the category of could someone just knock her out and take her where she needs to go?
Kadrak tried that.
Someone does, kind of.
Yeah. No, I mean, if Kadrak had succeeded with that, I would have been fine. It's like, can we just like go 500 pages with her unconscious and then drop her off where she needs to be? But
I do love Isgrimner, you know, just trying to get to her, and I love his whole story. Kind of when he, you know, because he's incognito as this monk, but when he shows like his true colors, who he really is, and people are like, oh God. He's probably my second favorite character behind Benebik. I really like Isgrimner. Those are my two favorite characters probably in the whole series right now.
I'd agree with that, actually. I mean, I love Dior North as well.
Yeah, he's a good one.
I think he would definitely grow on me, but yeah, Isgrimner is. We didn't get enough of him in Stone of Farewell. I would have liked more of him.
We don't get a whole lot of character exposition, but I also love Tiamat.
You'll get more there too.
What's that?
You will get more there too.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's obviously going to be someone who's relevant. But we just get little bits and pieces with him. But I find him kind of fascinating that he's like connected to all these super learned people, but he comes from a relatively primitive tribe, living out in the middle of nowhere in swamp huts. And he's got his split responsibilities and decisions to make around that. I thought that was quite awesome. Isgrimner I also love. Like, how can you not love Isgrimnor? I the whole time I just felt for him. Like he made my heart bleed more than any other character, because he's just like he's on this constant your princess is in another castle quest. You know,
Yeah.
he gets somewhere and it's like, oh, she's not here. She hasn't been here for a while. She went that way. Okay, I'll go that way. You know, and he's just following her all over the continent. Made me really feel for him.
Yeah, I think with Tiamat, that was one of the characters where I have no idea where his story's going, but it's obvious Williams has planted some seeds that, okay, there's some importance here, but I have no idea what's going to be. What's that?
He has a very important book that might
Mm-hmm.
solve the problem of the Norns and the Storm King. There's some reference. There's been a lot of heavy foreshadowing that he has something critical that will help Simon and his group and the prince to defeat the Norns. That's my understanding. It is this book that he has, which is very critical. I don't know about Tiamat himself. He's an interesting character, to say the least, but he suffered so much just getting to that little village. Your heart bleeds for him. He really did go through the ringer, poor thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's his significance, is this book that he's got. And he's not, I don't think he is. Is he a member of the League of the Scroll or not?
I think he is. Yeah.
I think he is.
So.
Okay. Yeah.
He's
not many of them left.
I don't know if he was officially in, but like when I forget again, but like somebody died and gave their scroll pendant to Isgrimnor, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
to Tiamat.
Dinovan gives his
Dinovan,
pin to Isgrimnor for Tiamat. So he's like he's an associate, but he wasn't an official member to that point.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
But now he's
kind of like an apprentice.
He's technically an official member because he's going to eventually get.
Yeah, there's not many left.
If Isgrimnor ever finds him, he's going to eventually get the pendant from Dinovan. Yeah.
Isgrimnor did find him.
Or did find,
at the end, right at the end.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. He also found that prince who had.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. The prince who obviously had hit his head in the water, who was supposedly drowned.
That whole bit for me was like,
yeah.
Here's a character from history that we've heard almost nothing about and don't have any reason to really care at all about, and you're introducing him as a brain damaged guy. Okay,
that's right. Thanks, Ron.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I saw that scene, and I think I commented on the Discord. I said, "Am I supposed to care about this?"
Yeah,
I didn't feel like William,
I thought it was an interesting connection, but I was like, I don't really care.
Yeah, it's mildly interesting, but I didn't really care.
Yeah.
He's the one who had the sword, right? So perhaps he has some knowledge regarding the sword's power that could assist our heroes. I'm assuming that's why he's been introduced. I guess we'll find out.
It also subverts the sort of typical questy plot beat where, somebody is looking for something and they run into somebody who knows something about it, who tells them something that helps them find it. What they've done instead is found somebody who should know something about it, but he's an idiot and he doesn't know anything.
True.
Yeah. He's like, oh, well, if this is Kamaris, then he can help it. No, he can't help you. He's brain damaged. He can't do anything.
There was always the mystery too of what happened to him. Did he drown or did he just disappear?
Yeah, but it was a mystery I didn't care about.
Yeah.
You guys make me sad.
I was curious.
Okay,
I always get curious about little things like that. So I was glad to find out, okay, that's what happened to him.
So yeah, and I will say with this series in general too. So it's come up a couple times. So to keep in mind that You do, and I know this is sort of a cop out, but like keeping in mind the time that it was written, because there are some things here that aren't nearly as surprising as they would have been at the time. But Williams really did a lot that made this actually like this a lot of bold, fresh kind of choices. And I mean, he inspired so many big authors after him, like George R. R. Martin and others. And although that's my favorite Martin quote is he inspired me to write my own 7-book trilogy, is the Martin quote about this series. But so like he did a ton of different things, and so keeping in mind that like some of the stuff now is like, oh yeah, we're doing that, but at the time it was really fresh. So I will say, but also and a lot of the like the characters being frustrating or doing dumb things, a lot of that is kind of from the first book too. This isn't the type of book where like, oh, the wise character is gonna guide our party to how they need to destroy the ring. This is, oh, the wise character, yeah, they're dead right away in the first book, and now everybody just has to figure it out, even though they're woefully unprepared to do it. And you have, even with like the League of the Scroll, you have this sense of like they're diminishing. They don't have the experience. There's so many things they don't know, and so a lot of this is kind of meant to be the what if you have this earth shattering thing happening, but you don't have anybody who's really prepared to deal with it, and they just have to figure it out anyway. So a lot of that is intentional, and it does make for some frustrating characters for sure. But that is part of what he's doing intentionally, I'll say.
It was all very vague about what the League actually knows, and that's what we're reading, is that they don't know a lot. There's a little bit of lore here, a little bit of lore there, and to me that sounds more realistic than them having all the answers in one place, because this was not necessarily something that they expected to happen. So of course now they're trying to find a solution to a problem that no one anticipated. But it's a good reminder, Nico, that yes, at the time that this was written, it's very different, would have read very differently to or for people who've read a lot of fantasy, as most of us have, many years later. So it's a good reminder.
Gandalf is literally an angel sent from God to help people. And nobody in this series is anything like that. They're all flawed individuals who either have been bonked on the head so they can't help, or get burned to death in the first couple of chapters so they can't help, or they're really obscure swamp women who won't say anything straight so they can't help either.
But that's
I like Jalou a lot, though. I do love her every time she just kind of pops up. Like when I forget the name of the people, where the Thrithings, I think. Yeah, the Thrithings, where she just suddenly appears where they are. So I do enjoy her character quite a bit, and that is in many ways kind of just a change on the Gandalf type of archetype.
What if Gandalf was Baba Yaga?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason I love Tiamat. Tiamat is like the anti-Gandalf. He's connected to, but not really initiated into, the secret society that knows everything, or knows more than anyone else anyway. He's really smart compared to the people that he lives with, but has no idea what's going on in almost all of the world. He's a wise man who doesn't know anything in a way, which is kind of cool. I like him a lot.
So any other scenes to talk about? Who was the one character? I can't think of his name right now. He ended up being one of the big bads that the Storm King made him.
Inga Jenga?
Yes.
What do we bring him up as well? Yeah. He seemed like, well, obviously he's going to play a part in the next book, because we didn't see all that much of him in this one. He was the one who was resurrected, right?
Yeah,
who was seemingly dead. Yeah. So I've got to say, I was also curious about, is it Scody, the woman who had all the children?
Yeah.
I'm still not sure what significance that storyline is, other than perhaps to show us a bit more of the Storm King's minions. But it's also made me curious about what other characters in this world have magical abilities. We have not seen a lot of real magic as such in this world. We've seen little bits here and there. So I'd like to see, are we going to come across other witches or warlocks or wizards? I don't know what to call them in this world. I actually like that the magic is kind of vague and it's not that clear
Same.
who has ability and what those abilities are.
We're old. Old people like soft magic.
I like hard magic too. I'm not that fast, but this was different compared to some other fantasy that I've read, and I kind of like that. It's unpredictable. I don't know where to expect magic to come into it.
I definitely like, I mean, I just in general prefer magic to be magical
Same.
and not scientific. And like nobody ever sitting down and explaining magic to me is exactly how it should be, as far as I'm concerned anyway. Like you don't sit down and explain magic to anyone who isn't a wizard. It's just not what people with magic do. And I have no idea about magic in this world. Like there's a bit of it there and there's a bit of it there that seems different. And some of it pops up over there and it's threatening and weird and comes from the Norns or something. And the Scythi have their own vague, you know, I like that.
Same. Yeah.
The world feels magical, but like I don't have a feeling of a magic system.
It's unpredictable because we don't know where we're going to find it. Yeah, I agree. I like that part of it. But yeah, I'm curious to see what else we're going to see because I think we will see a bit more. Obviously, I've been speculating a lot about the swords and what they're actually going to do once they're together. And I have no idea. That's what I've decided.
Like with the when we get to the Dwarrows and they explain that Brightnail is memory, and we all knew that. It was obvious. I've just been smacking myself in the head since early in the first book. Like, go dig it up. You know where it is. Nobody else seems to care that it's there.
Yeah.
And now you know what it is, but no, you don't know what it is. Some stupid girl who is half crazy knows what it is, and she's not telling anyone. Yeah, it's like, come on, guys. Like now everybody is very far away from where Brightnail is buried.
Yeah.
At a time when they were there. Yeah. I'm also really curious. Like, I still have no concept of. First of all, Thorn is a really weird and mysterious sword, like semi-useful. Sometimes it seems pretty useful, and sometimes it seems like a really big piece of heavy metal that isn't useful at all. And
have a will of its own.
Yeah, or at least it reacts to the person holding it. I don't know if it has a will or if it just if it's like Captain America's hammer. You know, you have to be worthy. I'm not sure which way it goes. Thor's hammer, rather. Captain America wielding Thor's hammer, which does happen. Like he could because he was worthy.
He was worthy.
Yeah.
I am also definitely curious because I don't know where things are going to go. I mean, obviously there's going to be a reckoning with the Storm King of some sort, but the fact that the series is named for the three swords, what are their importance? How are they going to play into this to be so important that Williams decided to name the series after them? So I'm definitely intrigued for that because I honestly have no idea. I don't even have any guesses.
They have to stab the Storm King with all three at once. That's my guess.
Spoiler, they have to throw it in the fires from which it was made. No, I'm just kidding.
So it's not subverting all the tropes. Yeah.
I was thinking that the swords have to be merged perhaps into something and become something greater than themselves. The combination of memory, of sorrow, and thorns. I don't know. I mean, that's just my vague.
I got to say,
Yeah.
it's a brilliant name for a series.
Does
It
it
is,
does it
isn't it?
strike anyone else though that like memory and sorrow to me go together? Like they're aspects of our minds. They're
Yes.
they're things that our minds do. Thorns are just an object in the world.
Okay, because I don't want to spoil anything. Have we gotten the explanation of the names of the swords yet?
No.
I will be quiet. Okay. I couldn't remember which book that happens in because there are reasons why
Okay.
they're called what they're called. But I couldn't remember where that happens.
Very vague, but not kind of, it's not all spelled out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think what Rogue said.
I-
Yeah,
I'm sorry, that just got me.
that's been my theory pretty much the whole time. Or like the Wonder Twins. Like if you say something and slap them all together, all three of them at the same time, they become a bigger, more powerful sword. Or I don't know. I have
did
no
think
idea.
about the names though, because you're right. Memory and sorrow go together, right? They're emotions or feelings that we have.
Yeah,
But thorns implies that perhaps that's what ties the two together, sorrow and memory, because memory can be bitter, can be painful.
yeah.
That's just, like I said, I'm just
Yeah, no, I have no
Thinking out
idea. I mean,
loud.
it's also an interesting kind of subversion of the way a lot of these things work. We've been told over and over again, we need all three swords,
yes.
probably to defeat the Storm King or to defend ourselves or whatever. And we've never been told why.
Yeah.
And right at the beginning of Lord of the
Right.
Rings, very early in Lord of the Rings, we know what the ring is, we know what the ring does, we know how to destroy it, and now it's just a matter of executing that plan.
Yes.
You know, it's like there's no mystery around the ring.
True.
Like Sauron made it, it controls all the other rings, it's evil, destroy it. And here's how. Now go do it. And then you've got 2.5 books of people going and doing it. And in this one, it's like we're searching for the swords. But why? I don't understand why you want the swords. What are you expecting them to do for you? We don't know either. But they're meant to be good.
Interesting is not knowing. I actually like not
Yeah,
knowing.
yeah. No, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's like it's totally different than a lot of fantasy quest sort of narratives, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Josh, I don't know how much this is helping you, but I want to read To Green Angel Tower so badly right now.
I'm definitely,
I'm very curious to read it.
definitely
I want to
feel-
read it too.
I definitely feel better than I did 90 minutes ago, for sure.
Oh, that's good.
Because
That's
I
really-
told Matt and Kathy, this book honestly made me wonder if I even like epic fantasy anymore. Because this was such a struggle for me, such a slog. So hopefully, I'm still waiting. I'm going to do Green Angel Tower kind of mid-March, the first half, and then sometime in April I'll do the second half. So
All I can say-
postponing a little bit.
All I can say to that ridiculous doubt, Josh, is how do you feel about Malazan?
Well, I'm pushing that off too. I'm still excited for Midnight Tide.
Yeah,
so
but not because you're not enjoying it.
no, it's
And
I feel
it's the epicest of epic fantasy. So
yeah, I don't know if I'm just getting burned out.
You
Fair
might
enough.
need a break
That's the
from
case.
fantasy. It does happen. You
Yeah.
can overdo it. I
Yeah.
know I've done it.
And it
sometimes
is super
take a
long.
break
Take
from
your
it.
time.
I'm
Yeah.
actually going to be reading it in March. Well, we're in March now, right? Yeah.
Are you
I'll
going to do
be-
2 volumes or 1, Kathy?
Well, I'm not sure because my intent is to read Malazan and finish it by May. I'm currently reading 7. I'd like to read 8 at the end of March or early
Ambitious.
April, and then 9 and 10 almost. Yeah, I was hoping to have read book 7, Reaper's Gale, before the end of February, but it didn't happen. Regardless, I'm thinking that I will read the first part of Green Angel Tower this month and the next part maybe immediately, or maybe I'll take a little bit of a break in between. But I'll finish it in April for sure. I wasn't intending to read all of them together because mine are the paperbacks as well as the broken bindings, and they're in 4. I've got 4 of them. I don't have the 3.
Yeah, and sorry, Tad, but if it has that many pages, it's not a book. It's just not.
Well,
I mean, it
seriously,
is split into book 1 and 2 in here.
how
There's
many
a natural
pages
break.
is it?
If most publishers refuse to put it between between 2 covers, then it's not a book.
How many pages is it, Nico, in the hardcover?
And how small
it
is the
is-
typography?
So it's only a little over 1,000 pages. Although, yeah, it's pretty small.
Yeah.
And it's a hardcover. Well, the Malazan, I'm currently reading a book that is 1,300 pages.
Woo!
Yeah, but seriously,
But they're
If-
1,300 awesome pages.
of course they are, because there's no
Maybe
other,
half of them.
But my point is that this to Green Angel Tower, if it had been published today, it might have been published as 1 book. But back then they considered it too long, so they split it into 2.
Yeah.
But it's not like we haven't read books that are as long as that.
So
No.
Nico, is it a logical break between the 2 volumes? Do you know?
Yeah, you can 100% take a break. There is an actual break point. So that's where it actually splits really, really well.
Cool.
Yeah, but you will actually, there is like a book 1 and a book 2 in there, which is a really good split point. So
Okay, that's good.
yeah, you can.
Okay,
totally take a break there, really.
Jerome has a point. Like pages, I always, as a typography nerd, I'm always like, I don't care how many pages you say it has.
I want words.
Yeah, pages don't mean anything. I
Yeah.
could put 1,000,000 words on 100 pages. You wouldn't be able to read them.
Yeah.
But I could set typography that way.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree. It's the words. It's the number of words
Yeah.
rather than the actual pages.
there are books I've opened and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get a headache reading this. It's only 500 pages, but it's actually 1,000, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't looked at my next one because I'm not going to read it just yet, but I'm definitely
Yeah.
going to read it in April.
These
Well,
covers.
I've actually got the paperbacks, so I'm going to read
Yeah, I've got
those.
the paperbacks as well.
Yeah.
I'll probably read the paperbacks, but I just love this. Although,
Yeah.
I'm interested. Did everybody, when you were reading it, did you imagine the stone this way?
It reminds me of
This is the real stuff.
The real stone, the Welland stone.
I was thinking that reminds me of Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
It's Devil's
Yeah.
Tower, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it
Yeah,
reminds
no, I somehow, I don't know, maybe I didn't read closely enough or wasn't concentrating, paying attention enough when I was reading it, but I imagined it being a lot shorter and not nearly so like impossible to get to the top of.
No, it's apparently quite tall.
Yeah, okay.
And you go around and around and around to get to the top, which is like a plateau.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
my-
I got all that, but I was just imagining it being like wide and not as tall rather than so tall and with very little space on the top. But yeah.
I think I was influenced because I was reading the Broken Binding edition that I saw the cover every time I opened it up. So I was already picturing what I saw in the cover art.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the cover, the Welland cover that Nico showed, looks a lot more like just a rock, and a kind of natural looking rock rather than this looks like it's been worked on quite a bit.
Well, you're seeing it from really far away because you can see there's some detail, like there's structure at the top. It's just a little hard to see.
Yeah.
It's pretty huge. Like you can see the little pathways, but it's
No, I just mean like this one looks like most of it or a lot of it has been chiseled away. It's got these perfectly smooth, straight edges, you know. It looks very worked on. But yeah, anyway. It's an interesting place.
Well, I'm curious to find out exactly what the Stone of Farewell signifies. And now that our heroes have been reunited, I'd like to see where it's going to go from there, because Joshua's there too. So now everyone's together. Because honestly, the way this book went, Stone of Farewell, I thought, how the hell are they ever going to defeat the Norns? And Elias, he's the one, while Joshua's supporters have been decimated, so obviously he needs troops. Is it going to be the Scythi, or is it going to be that they're going to defeat the Storm King another way? I just don't know how they're going to succeed. And that's why I want to read the next book.
Yeah, I do like seeing, because I think of some of these kind of ideas, you can tell where Martin took them from Williams. Because you think about in Song of Ice and Fire, you have, up north, you have the others and all of that, and that's the big threat. But you also still have the political things going on, kind of very similar that you see here. So you can definitely see those influences there. And I have enjoyed that side of it, just thinking of how influential these series have been. Like I read Durfee's books last year, and like those are so obvious that he and so much of it is a love letter to Tad Williams. You can tell just seeing the influence.
And Kate Elliott.
Oh, I haven't read her.
One of the things I also like a lot, again, it's kind of taking a typical beat in fantasy and just not doing it, or doing it completely differently, is like they spend this entire book getting to this rock, and this rock doesn't solve anything. Like this rock is a place to hide until they get killed, basically. Like it feels pretty hopeless. It's like we're in a slightly better position than we were when we were just running around in the wilderness. Like now we at least kind of have a home, and it's a bit more defensible than anywhere else that we've been. But it's not really a solution to anything. It's a stopgap. It's a halfway useful stopgap, is what it looks like anyway.
It'll be interesting.
Time will tell.
Yeah. I'm wondering if it's got some magical properties that we don't know about. Whether it's got, I have no idea. Yeah.
I can tell you without it really being spoilers, Tad goes on about the Stone of Farewell quite a bit right at the beginning of the next book. So
it has to be significant then. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is we will learn more. We don't have to wait very long either.
Tad going on about something, that doesn't sound like him at all.
No, not at all. And again, I mean, honestly, like I've only read the beginning, but the beginning of the next book is another weird mix of, I'm really enjoying getting into this world building, but damn, this is boring. Like there's just nothing happening, and like, can we get on with something? But the world building stuff is like, oh yeah, eat it up, no problem.
Yeah. That's where it's a book to take your time with. Don't try and force through. It is a marathon, not a sprint for sure. It's a long one. There was a lot of payoff and a lot of really big things, great action scenes, all kinds of crazy stuff jam packed in there. So there's a ton, but yeah, I do recommend taking your time with it. I think pretty much everyone. I know somebody in the comments too said take the break when you get to the natural break point in between. It's. Take your time with it, and there we go. I think you'll enjoy it more if you take your time with it. If you try to really, really just push through, it's just not the best way to experience Tad. His books are nice when you just take your time with them. And yeah, don't feel rushed. You'll enjoy it a lot more if you just take your time.
I'm just looking forward to the power of Grayskull. Like when we get to that chapter, I'm all in.
But yeah, based on what you said there, Nico, I'm very glad that we decided to spread it out over 2 months.
Yeah.
So that people can take their time, because it is such a big book. Even if you read it in 2 installments, it's 2 big books. I mean, each of those broken bindings are still like 800 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm crazy reading Malazan and Memory Sorrow at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of intense. Yeah.
I don't mind it. I prefer to read 2 big books per month and something else in between, rather than a lot of little books that I'm not enjoying as much. So
yeah, and I think also the for me anyway, the length of any book I'm reading is directly related to how much I'm enjoying it. And you're enjoying Malazan so much. that they're tiny books. They're nothing.
Not
They're
quite
easy.
tiny, but,
They're
but
quick.
you don't mind the
They're like
amount of time you
beach
spend on
reads.
it.
Yeah, exactly. You fly through it if you're
I'll
really,
be
really
honest.
into it.
Even though I didn't love the ending of this, I did not slow down reading it. I really did enjoy it overall. I was just disappointed that it didn't have that high that the Dragonbone Chair had. And I thought perhaps that's because this is the second book and I have to wait till the next one to get that high, because I really did love the ending of Dragonbone Chair. But I didn't feel as bogged down as you, Josh, in Stone of Farewell. I just wish that there was a little bit more action at the end or some kind of climax, even if it was a small climax, but just having Simon be reunited with Binabik and Sludik, that wasn't quite enough for me. Yeah.
I do think this is a series because everybody jokes it's a 4-book trilogy. Really, this could have been 5 or 6 books. And I think it would have been improved upon had it been split up a little bit differently. Because, at the start of book 2, you're getting falling action from book 1. The start of book 3, like Matt, like you said, you're getting kind of the falling action, kind of thing from book 2. So there's some of it is, the pacing's a little off in places. And I think this could have been multiple books where you kind of shift some of the events around and have shorter books, but a longer series. But, publisher wanted a trilogy and Tad tried. He's just not good at writing trilogies. He needs more time than that. And he jokes about it too, with like the new series is 4 books plus 2 novellas. And I asked him about it when I interviewed him. He's like, oh, of course it was supposed to be a trilogy. Yeah, I just can't do a trilogy. And so it's one of those things where it has its flaws, but for me, it still has a lot of charm for sure.
Also,
I agree with that. It's got a lot of charm.
Having not finished Green Angel Tower, it kind of feels actually like one short book and one really long book to me. Like Stone of Farewell feels like it's a preface to Green Angel Tower. It doesn't feel like it stands that well as a book on its own, whereas Dragonbone Chair sits pretty well as our book.
Yeah.
But Stone of Farewell is like, if I just read that, I'd be really disappointed and irritated.
If that was the first book, we wouldn't have enjoyed it. And I think a lot of people would have stopped there. Yeah. But because it's the second and you're already invested, you want to read the next one to find out.
And it just feels like it's all about setting up Green Angel Tower.
It's a setup.
It's not really about the thing on its own. It's about the next book, kind of.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
Moving things into place so that Green Angel Tower can happen.
Yeah. Putting all the pieces on the board and showing you the background, the world that everything's taking place in. I am really looking forward to reading the next one, actually, book 3. And if I find that I'm too curious and I got to finish it, then I'll probably just continue on with
just
book
power
4.
on.
Yeah. And
to be honest, that's what I did.
Yeah. I usually do when I'm near the end of a series. Like I can pace myself early on, but once I get to like the last few books, it's really hard to stop because you just want to know how it's going to end. So I will very likely probably read the 2 together. And I'm actually looking to probably start the next series or continuation of this, but not immediately. I need to finish Malazan. I need to finish a couple of big series before I start another series.
Don't cross the streams too much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Rogue, to answer this one, I think most of us I think this is a pretty good microcosm of how we felt. We were mostly very positive about the first book, not as positive about the second book. Probably a mixture of people that found it very middling to people that liked it a lot, kind of a little bit. But I would say the overall reception of the second book was definitely lower than the first book. But I've seen people say they're going to slow down or postpone the last book, but I haven't seen anybody say that they're going to totally quit. So that's a good thing.
I'd say overall positive.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
having some great discussions for sure. I really enjoy.
I was going to recommend you guys, but I'm realizing it might have some kind of lore spoilers anyway. But I wrote a metal song about this series.
You
Called
wrote a
Storm
metal
King.
song.
Yeah,
Love it.
I've written a few, but if for anyone who's read the whole thing, you can look it up. It's called Storm King by Blackstone Heart. It's on all platforms. But it's one of my favorite songs. I do metal music with Michael R. Fletcher, the author, occasionally. So
That's cool.
I did not know that. You should put it on the Discord. Let us know so that when we finish the series,
Yeah, definitely share it there.
Yeah.
For sure.
yeah, I can send you guys a link.
Yeah.
then we can go.
You probably won't be able to understand the lyrics, to be fair, so it'll be okay. If you,
And we're not that old, you know. I've listened to metal in the past, the very long past.
Hey,
but-
there's a tradition of that. I mean, there was people wrote stuff about Elric. I know that I can't think of the bands right now that wrote.
Michael Moorcock wrote songs about Elric, which proper metal bands have produced or have performed. Yeah, he goes on tour with Hawkwind.
yeah, Hawkwind. He wrote several Blue Oyster Cult songs too.
Also, yeah, exactly. And there are I mean, somehow Elric has been extremely inspirational for metal music. There's a band called Stormbringer, and every song they have is about Elric, or the swords, or whatever.
That's what we call fans. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty metal character, right?
It's a pretty metal character, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a drug addict. He's a sorcerer who consorts with demons. Yeah, he's pretty metal.
I have not read
sword
yet.
It's worth reading. I mean, I think if I actually like the novels as well. The stories are good, but Elric was an important point in fantasy history, I think. Because it was like a reaction to Conan and a reaction to the more mainstream fantasy that we all kind of know. And Elric is like the opposite of pretty much every fantasy character that you've ever seen. He was grimdark before the phrase grimdark existed.
I don't like the phrase grimdark, or I don't like calling fantasy grimdark. I don't think it's always accurate. I know people refer to Malazan as grimdark. I don't think that's accurate at all. But
defining grimdark is like it's like one of those
It-
pointless pursuits. But
It seems that
It's an overgeneralized and overused term. For
exactly.
Yeah.
Elric is super grim and it's super dark. Put it that way. Like
I'd accept
he's
that.
he's a drug addict who sacrifices souls to his demon lord, Ariok. That's kind of his
I've got the
MO.
first book. I will read it at
pretty-
one point.
Yeah.
But
I really
I'm
do need to read Elric. It is very much on my list. I have those new editions, but I'm on a quest to read every big fantasy series, and so I've read a lot, but I haven't gotten to those quite yet. But I am very interested.
All I would say with Elric is do not read the newest one. Whatever you do, do not read the newest one.
I've read the first 8. I haven't read
the garbage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my god, it's so bad. And that's coming from me and one of my best friends, and we're both big Elric fans. And then the newest one, you're just like, what are you doing, Michael Moorcock? Has your brain already melted from age, or what?
He's still writing.
He published a book last year, 2 years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's just a cash grab from him.
You get that sometimes.
I mean, it kind of fits. Like they're republishing Elric in these new editions and all of that.
Yeah, they're lovely editions.
Yeah.
But it's also, I know, like a classic fantasy. So I feel like I need to read it. Yeah, I've got the first. I haven't got the second yet.
The green cover, which is Michael Whelan as well. I had
Stop doing artwork, Michael Whelan.
Well, that was done in 1978.
Oh, okay.
That's the original paperback cover.
Okay.
Reused it for the new edition.
Yeah, good for them.
And he still does artwork because he's been doing the covers for Stormlight Archive. But apparently, I think you just have to pay him like an insane amount of money.
No, he didn't do the Austin Ard ones. I read
Well,
the last ones, and there's
so
a
he
big,
started. They weren't making enough money, so they didn't want to pay for him anymore. Which is a shame.
yeah, because they look so different, don't they? Yeah. Look at that. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, love that.
We can't hear you again, Nico.
Sorry, Nico, you've gone quiet again.
Can't hear you at all. Okay, now it's back.
Okay. I must have bumped my mic. I'm sorry, but yeah. So love this one, and the other ones they're not bad, but they're not the same.
Boring.
No.
So
Yeah.
They're
Have you read
definitely
the second
boring.
one? I'm assuming, Nico, you've read the second series as well. Oh yeah, come on, that's so horrible. Seriously, I don't like a lot of the modern artwork on fantasy today. But then I've been reading or collecting books since the 80s and 90s, so I have all that wonderful old artwork. So when I see the new ones, I'm like, boring. No,
I can as a designer, I can tell you why so many modern covers are boring, because they didn't put any money into the cover.
Yes.
Yep.
They saved a lot of money by getting something graphic, which someone could do in an afternoon. Like there are covers I see where I'm like, it's well painted, but I don't like it. But then there are other covers where I'm like, I could literally do that in half an hour.
Yes. And
like
it's
if someone
obvious.
hired me to do a cover in half an hour, I could have done that.
Look, I understand that, but it also means that the books now lack something that they used to have in the past.
Sure.
Yeah.
Totally.
Because beautiful artwork makes a big difference.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a like Michael Whelan, Don Mates, Brothers Hildebrandt, like those guys totally rocked a million covers back in the day. And made
Jenny Watts' husband, I believe.
Indeed.
Right?
Indeed.
Yeah. Actually, I first learned about Jenny Watts through her artwork. Yeah. That's how I first learned about her.
That's Brothers Hildebrandt, isn't it? Or is that Don Mates?
That one's Don.
Oh,
Mates.
Okay.
Yeah.
It has a very Brothers Hildebrandt brushstroke kind of feel.
He did, I think, a few of the Reform Saga, didn't he?
And that's Jenny.
These are
I love Jenny's covers as well.
Yeah, hers are beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, we're not here to talk about covers.
Let's end with maybe some final thoughts of Stone of Farewell, or what our hopes are going forward.
I'm hoping the ending will lift this series from good to great. That's what I'm hoping. Yeah, I want an epic ending that satisfies me with good story arcs. Good character arcs, I meant to say, and a grand ending similar to Dragonbone Chair, even though that wasn't a good ending for our heroes. It was epic in scale, and that's what I'd like. So, yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to seeing in the next few books.
Matt, how about you?
I'm very much looking forward to, or at least hoping for, some character development with Simon. I'm hoping that Vorsheva cops an arrow in the face.
Wow.
Okay. No,
I'm not necessarily hoping for that, but I wouldn't mind. Like I wouldn't complain. I wouldn't write a letter to Tad if Vorsheva just like arrow right in the forehead. I'm really curious what the hell's going on with the swords. Like I'm assuming that all three of them have to come together by the end of Green Angel Tower, or at least the second part of Green Angel Tower. So I'm looking forward to like what the hell is going on with them swords. Tad had better not do anything nasty to Benebik, otherwise I will be writing him a letter.
Yeah, we're going to throw books across the room.
Like
if anything
Binnabik
happens.
and Quantaka have to survive. Like they
Yeah.
have plot armor as far as I'm concerned. Do not touch them, Tad, or we're going to have words.
Who was the other one?
Quantaka.
The wolf.
Binnabik's wolf.
Oh, the wolf, of course not. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, can I just add something that I just remembered that the two books are called Green Angel Tower Siege,
Siege
and
and
then
Storm.
Storm.
Yeah.
And the Stone of Farewell had hints that the Norns were coming down to attack Hayholt or try. And see, I wondered if it was going to be Joshua who was going to lay siege, but now I'm wondering if it's going to be the Norns who are going to lay siege too. Yes, I know you can tell
I've
us,
only
but-
read this much of Green Angel Tower, so I'm not spoiling anything because I really don't know. But my big assumption is they have now found a place that is at least somewhat defensible.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that they are going to be under siege at the Stone of Farewell. Like that is the siege that would make sense to me. But I
Green
have no
Angel
idea.
Tower is the tower
Right.
in Hayholt.
Right.
That's why I assumed that the siege would be there, but I could be wrong.
I think that's where the storm is. But yeah, I have no idea.
We'll
I just
find
thought it feels like a natural progression that like what they've been searching for this whole time, like through this whole book, is a place that they could be at least somewhat safe and where they can gather themselves and whatever. And it's defensible. But maybe they're just gonna like hang out there for a while, gather an army, and then go back to where they can get the tower back. Or I really don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, I'm looking forward to a lot of these things that have been all over the place starting to converge, and come together. That's one of the things I got a bit tired of at points in this book, is that it was so dispersed, that you had people way over there and they're doing stuff and not talking to the people who are over here and they're doing other stuff. And, it was just a bit all over the place. That's fine for a while, but it's got to start, coming together again. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
I guess for me, I only have one hope, is that I enjoy the book because so much of Stone of Farewell was such a slog for me. Like I said, I almost quit partway through, but the read along. So I hope that this is just a bump along the road, and that I really love both of these Green Angel Tower reads. One in March and one in April. That's really my only hopes. So,
like I said, I mean, Nico can maybe give us a hint, but like I said, go into it knowing that it starts pretty slow. Like the first, I think I've only read 2 or 3 chapters, but those I was like, really, Ted?
Yeah, it is still going to start slow.
Yeah.
That's why, like I said, take your time. Don't understand that you're going to probably be in that same kind of mindset for a bit, but it does absolutely pick up. Yes.
Yeah. About how long does it take?
Oh gosh, I don't remember specifically.
Are we talking about 4 or 5 chapters? Or are we talking about 10?
I think it gets going fairly quickly, if I recall. It has been a bit though.
Okay.
Well, hopefully that is the case. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the chat for coming and adding to our discussion today. Thank you, Nico and Kathy and Matt, for hanging out and talking about Stone of Farewell. Of course, we are reading these on the Fireside Discord. So description below, if you haven't joined us at the Fireside, feel free to click there and join us for more discussion. We'll be reading Stone of Farewell over both March and April, and we'd love to have you in the chat. But once again, thank you, my guests. Thank you to everybody in the chat, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Josh.
Bye, everyone.
See you, everybody.